Welcome to Maths Bridge. Let's learn Java programming. Folks, please do visit us at our YouTube channel Maths Bridge. I think you are already subscribed to the channel. If you have not, please do subscribe the channel and then support us. Thank you and then happy learning. Here is our today's agenda. Today we're gonna look at errors in Java programming. What is meant by error? Error is a serious problem while executing a software program is called an error. The context of programming, Java programming. So an error is an illegal statement executed by the software program that causes the program behaves abnormally, right? Assuming that you are executing some in a statement which considered as illegal, that means like software program behaves abnormally due to that particular statement instruction, right? That means like you encountered a serious problem and hence we call it as a error. So if you look at the few errors that you might already come across are, so while writing a code, if you are syntactically, if you miss something, then the compiler detect the error during the compilation time, isn't it? Precisely in the Eclipse, right, we have seen that like build automatic option, when you select it, it ceases like a changes in the source code and then try build as and when it sees a changes. While doing that, so it catches that error and then prompt the user that like what line has an error, right? Those called as a compilation error, a syntactical errors. That's one thing. Next type of error is what we can see is like linkage errors. Let's say you try to access a method from different package but not giving a qualified the path name, like using import that package into current source file. That sort of things are called as linkage errors. And unresolved symbol error is nothing but a linkage error. This also we can see. The third type of error that what we can also see is like a class loading error. So if the JVM class loader is a fail to load your class file, right, object file, bytecode, I mean, those called as a class loading errors. And also we can think of like a logical error. What this means is, sounds to be program is correct and then program runs perfectly, but program also produce the output, but the output is not a desired output, right? You see what I'm saying? You wrote the program correctly and then you are able to execute the program correctly and then program also produced an output, but the output is not what you wanted to see, right? Those errors are called as a logical errors. You got it? Now we come to the main point, runtime errors. While running a program, while executing a program, you might encounter a errors. Those errors called a runtime errors. It is a counterpart of your compilation errors. Compile time errors and runtime errors are the main classifications. Basically, we have to think about it. Okay, in runtime error, certain errors that you can handle, certain errors you can't even handle. For instance, cannot be handled errors are stack overflow error, virtual machine error, JVM, out of memory error. These are the errors that cannot be handled. Those are absolutely left with errors only. But there are the scenarios where programmatically you can handle certain errors. That when we do so, what we can call them as an exceptions. You can handle those errors through exception handler. If you can look at a classification of exceptions, we have a user defined exceptions, built-in exceptions. Built-in exceptions are also classified further into two types. Checked exception. Checked exception means like IO exception, SQL exception, file not found, class not found. these are part of your checked exception in built-in. There are unchecked exceptions, something like an arithmetic exception, 0 by, I mean something by 0, divide by 0 error, right? Array index boundary exception. Those are all unchecked exceptions. Along with that, we do have a user defined errors, wherein user can define an exception, right, to handle certain application scenarios properly. Do you see now what is meant by errors? What are the types of errors that we have? What is mean by exception? What are the types of exception that are exist, right? This is the overall snapshot of errors slash exception concept in Java programming. Let's see the concept of Java exception handlers. Let's define exceptions. Exception means is unexpected event that happens, right, that occurs during the execution of the program. When the exception occurs, the execution of a program gets terminated. So this is like unusual behavior, but that has to happen when exception likely to happen in your program, right? So how we are going to handle the exceptions? So the concept called try catch block to avoid these termination conditions in the program. Here is the general form for handling exceptions. Try catch final. Try means this is a block of code to try, means a exception causing statements might be part of try. If you feel that like there are certain instructions which may create an exception, right, in that case those code snippet should be enclosed by your try block. That's an idea. If at all exception happens, then you have to have a catch block. This block is basically to catch the exception, right, caused by the instruction in try block. So here what kind of code that we have? Block of code to handle the errors is what you can see in the catch block. Exception handling statements would be there in this block. There is one more called as a final block. Final block is a place where you do a common code like resetting initial values, right? When you are actually terminating the program, you might need to release the memory which is previously allocated. Certain housekeeping things can be done through the final at any cost will be executed irrespective of the exception happens or exception is happening. Both cases it handles. Okay, here is the concept. So if the problem occurs, then Java creates a exception object. Once you have the exception object which has information of an exception, it throws an exception. When system throws an exception, somebody need to catch it, right? So that is called as a handling the exception. So these throwing the exception and handling the exception is going to be handled by the program with a concept called try catch. All right, let's look at concept of exceptions and then handling the exceptions through the sample programs. If you can see my screen, here I am trying to demonstrate it how exception can happen. That's if you really look at my main method in which I have 3 executable statements. In line number 7, I have initialized the array variable with these elements. In line number 9, I am printing on console one element of the array. In line number 11, I am just giving a printf statement stating that this is a last statement of the program. Is it? So ideally speaking, I would expect like a two console messages on this screen. Let me run and then see whether it is really happening. Right? Oops, what did happen? Why I am not able to get the right output? Let's inspect this error message. So what it says is like there is an exception in the program. Okay, what was that? Array index out of boundary exception. This makes sense to me by seeing that looks like there was a issue with accessing the array. That's nice. What it also says like out of bounds, right? Out of bounds exception means you have a certain limit of length in array, but you are trying to access maybe outside of that length, probably, right? That's what it is. What it says like index 10 out of bounds for length 5. Your length of array is like 5, but you are trying to access like index 10 is a 11th element. Obviously this would cause an exception, and hence program as soon as see the exception it gets terminated. So ideally speaking, the line number 11 never executed at all, because instruction caused by this line number 9 with which the program gets terminated abnormally. Do you see? This is a one simple example to understand how exception can occur in the program. How do you fix this one? Because you don't want to let program terminates abnormally, because there are other instructions which may need the program execution completes, right? So the idea here is that it's okay to have an exception, but handle them properly so that let the program execution should happen for the rest of all executable statements within the program. Correct? That is how you have to see. So what is that kind of mechanism that we have seen using try catch? If you use like a try catch method, then you should be able to handle the exceptions, or which causes an exception, right? So let's say for instance in our program we know for sure that this line has an issue. That means like this line should be enclosed in try block. That's an idea. So whatever the code that you would like to think of, there could be a chance of like getting exception by executing these statements. If you had that kind of thought, then immediately put them in the try block. So if really a program encounters that exception, the Java creates a exception object and throw that exception out. When it throws, then programmatically you need to catch that exception using a catch block. That is what this means. So you can catch that exception. It can be like a single exception, or multiple exception can also be catched here in this case, but I am only showing one and a catch, within which what I will do, like I will try to write a statements to handle the exception. In our cases, like I'm just catching the exception, I'm just printing on the console. Then I have the rest of the program. To simulate that, I just added one statement, right? The last statement. So in this case what happens, even though I have an exception, but still the program let that execute rest by capturing the exception, right? Let's see how this works now. Let me run this program and then see. This time I don't see that program termination, but instead I capture the exception caused by that line, and also the remaining executable statements within the program also executed, and then gracefully program terminated at the end. Do you see? This is a beautiful concept of handling an exceptions using try catch method, right? Catch, basically try catch. There is one more concept called user defined exceptions. Let's say simple use case, but we can see more in following sessions. But for now, Let's assume that within the main program I am trying to check the age. If the age is under 18, you are not going to actually eligible for vote, otherwise you are eligible for the casting the vote. That's kind of a use case, right? So if you look at here, what I did is that I might wanted to actually raise an exception if the age is less than 18. So if you look at check age is the method, where is this method definition? The method definition is here. Okay, so you have a static method called check age, where I am checking if age is 18, right? Saying like age is not valid for voting, must be 18 or older should be required. That is what the kind of message that you wanted to capture as an exception. So what you do, like throw new invalid age exception. So this is what you created as an exception. So you see the concept, what it means. Whenever you wanted to raise an exception programmatically, first you need to create a exception object, then using a new keyword, then you throw that exception. When you throw that exception, the catch will catch them. That's the concept. But now you are defining user defined exceptions by this mechanism, right? How this object will be created, because you have a one more class created at the above to handle this exception. This is how the syntactically you can manage. Okay, we can do like a few more sample programs that gives you like a kind of insight of how you are going to define the user defined exceptions, and then what are the ways that you can handle them. For now, let's understand the concept of there is a user defined exceptions can also be managed by the program. Okay, if you run this program, for instance, do you see exception caught, age is not valid for voting, must be 18 or older, and the rest of the program is what are all sequential instructions that are there within your sequence of program, those going to be executed. But you still, nice way to capture the exception is called as a user defined exception. Let's put this is, let's say, a 21, then you won't get an exception in this case, right? Because your age is greater than 18. So if you run this program, you don't see the exception, but you see that other program, right? Okay, you are eligible, and the rest of the program executes. You see, this is a concept. Okay, when exception happens, then Java object will be created and then throws the object. Since it is throws, you have to catch it. Where you are going to catch, you have to catch in the catch block. That's how a try catch method, blocks are used for handling the exceptions, called as a exception handling in Java. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, subscribe, click on bell icon and leave the comments. Happy learning. Thank you. Stay tuned to upcoming sessions.